Whew. Are y'all ready, y'all? I gotta ask. All right, I'm not nervous. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm not nervous because it's Ravens Steelers Part 3, and this time all the marbles on the line, at least to advance in the playoffs. Can the Ravens do it again? Because the Steelers have always been their kryptonite, but it's gonna be interesting because I think this could be a career-defining run for Lamar Jackson. The start of it today when it comes to the Ravens Steelers. Also, the All Pro team and the Pro Bowl team has been revealed, and there's some people out here they upset. They're a little mad. All right, they're a little mad. I think for Ravens fans, we're okay. There's a couple of guys we could talk about, we can think about, and we will talk about. But it's very interesting that who made it, and it's very interesting who did not. And lastly, the MVP conversation is done. It's finito. It's over. Okay, in my opinion. And I don't even think we need to have this conversation. But since there's still a little questioning out there, we are going to have this conversation right here on the Be More Show. Stay tuned in, get locked in. I'm gonna give you just a couple seconds to go get your popcorn, get your drink, come on back, and let's have this conversation. I appreciate y'all, easy for me to say, for rocking with me, locking in with me today as we get ready to talk Ravens, Steelers, and much more right here on the Be More Show. All right, y'all, welcome into the Be More Show. We're back once again. I'm your host, DJ, and I'm back again. Look to talk about a lot of things, really. A lot of things, really. Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. I mean, now that the playoffs are underway, I feel like as football fans, we have a full plate. All right, we have a full plate of things to talk about. But we might as well jump right into the Ravens versus the Steelers game. First things first, I do want to thank you all for hanging out with me for a little bit right now as we talk about the Ravens and we talk about the Steelers in game 3 of a game that I think, honestly, if this was the matchup a month ago, we probably would have been having a different discussion. But the Ravens face the Steelers in the wild card round of the playoffs, right? And honestly, man, just to umbrella statement, throw it out here, I genuinely think this is the start, and a lot of Ravens fans have said this as well, but I genuinely think this is the start of a career altering playoff run for Lamar Jackson. That prayerfully, hopefully, we all want to see in a Super Bowl. And if it does, the teams that he has to go through this year will honestly make more of an impact than what last year looked like, right? Last year, we're talking about number 1 seed. We're talking about obviously the best team. We're talking about obviously the most talented. You had the top defense. You had arguably the top offense. And you were just playing in excellence, right? And to have it in Kansas City, that was tough, especially a game where you felt like you could win, and a game that if you could get past it, you probably win the Super Bowl. But it's interesting because we can take ourselves back to 2012, where the Ravens looked like the better team in a lot of ways. They may not have been the best team in the league or anything like that, but they looked like the better team. Let's just be honest, right? When the Ravens went up against the Patriots, and we know the Lee Evans drop, we know the Billy Cundiff miss, the heartbreak of that game, but it felt like the Ravens were the better team. They turned around, flip it on its head the next year, and they go and win a Super Bowl. And we hope that heartbreak turns to triumph for the Baltimore Ravens this year. And I think, like, when you look at the potential lineup of teams that the Ravens could play, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1 of the playoffs, right? You got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team that has had your number for years. And it was just until this year, a couple weeks ago, week 16, where you beat them 34-17. You look like the better team. You look like the Kings of the North. You looked like that team. You weren't at that time, but you looked like it. You looked like the better team. You played like the better team. You played a clean game like we talked about in that game. And it's funny because when you look back at that game, right, it almost kind of turned some things for the Ravens, right? I know they still got the Chiefs on their list, and that could potentially be AFC Championship game worthy type game if the Chiefs can make it there. And that's another one where it's like, I think, if you can make it to the AFC Championship game and you face off against the Chiefs, then we have a whole nother conversation of what could be. Like, it's the revenge game from last year. Is what you got to do to get to a Super Bowl. You probably more than likely gonna have to get through that team, and that's another one too. And then in the middle of that, my hope would be kind of like a lot of Ravens fans, I think too, is the Bills, because the Bills fans have been talking that talk because they're a seat ahead of the Ravens, because they have an MVP. Let me put it like this: an MVP candidate in Josh Allen, and I think it's one of those situations where Bills fans feel like it's possible that they are the favorites because they've been talked about all year, and we're not going to talk about their losses that they've had this year. It's been few and far between, but their losses have made them look worse, I think, than even some of their wins have, and I think that's another part of it too. But to have that kind of gauntlet schedule of Steelers, who's been your kryptonite for years, the Bills, who everybody's have always been trying to kind of making these comparisons. Everybody thinks Josh Allen is the MVP, even though the numbers don't say that. But whatever, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Everybody thinks that Josh Allen is the MVP, and because of that, people, it would just be academic, right? It would just be perfect to beat that team, push your way to the AFC Championship game, and then boom, you're feeling good. You got momentum going into the AFC Championship game, at least, especially because head to head this year, you played the Bills well. This is the same Bills team that you played earlier in this season, and that's one of those losses that I think sometimes we lose sight of. But I know us as Ravens fans, us over here, we remember that game. And then lastly, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs to get that revenge, that much needed, that much. And maybe it's not necessarily for the Ravens as players, but for Ravens fans, like the Chiefs have been another one of those kryptonite type teams, another one of those teams where it's like, man, like by hook or by crook, it kind of like their entire season this year, but especially against the Ravens. The Ravens kind of start slow and then they fight their way back, and by hook or by crook, Patrick Mahomes gets a big first down, and there you go. And it's just one of those situations, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. Shout out to 86 Ghosts hanging out with me again. Look, 86 Ghosts got the noties on. All right, 86 Ghosts got the notifications on. So when I go live, y'all gotta tap in so we can have these conversations. But shout out to you. I appreciate you for coming by and hanging out once again. You've been hanging out with me for the last couple of weeks doing this show, so I appreciate you. But when it comes to the Ravens, when it comes to the Steelers, when it comes to the wild card game, I want to break this down into 5 again because I'm gonna stick with that until I find something new to do that I like a little more. But let's break it down once again, and it's probably going to be very similar to that Week 16 game that we talked about, right? It's probably there. I mean, I'm not using the same notes. These are different notes, but I will say that just because they're different notes does not necessarily mean they won't overlap a little bit. Because I can be honest with you, some of them are probably going to overlap from the Week 16. What ended up being a victory, the keys to victory that I felt like the Ravens needed. But I think first things first, so we're going to go 3 things the Ravens got to do, 2 things the Ravens, got to avoid. I think first things first, you got to play a clean game once again. I think especially in the playoffs, the Ravens have lost their way. The Ravens have lost their identity. And we've seen kind of that rear its ugly head rare times in the regular season, but specifically against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the division rival who they know your number, they got your number, they got you on speed dial, they got your pager number, they got all of that. Okay. And I think for the Steelers coming into this game, they kind of got to get in the head of the Ravens a little bit, because I think for the Steelers, there's not nearly as much pressure as there is for the Ravens. I think the Steelers, of course, they don't want to fall off the face of the earth and fall off this cliff that they have over the past 5 games, and they kind of want to bounce back, but I think there's less pressure on them. And sometimes when there's less pressure on you, that's when it's easier to kind of do what you got to do. All the pressure's on Lamar Jackson. Even for Ravens fans, like we sitting here thinking, man, I love another regular season MVP. But the problem with a regular season MVP is a lot of times, at least for Ravens fans lately, it ain't led to a Super Bowl MVP. And that's what we want. Or at least a Super Bowl, at least a Super Bowl. I mean, Super Bowl MVP would be great too, but it's like it ain't led to a Super Bowl victory. So I think you got to play a clean game. You like kind of like we talked about before. The first matchup when they played, Derrick Henry fumbled the first play. And I think Lamar Jackson fumbled later on in the game. And it was just an ugly game. It was just an ugly game, and the Ravens could not get up from it. Whereas, yes, there was a pick by Minkah Fitzpatrick, but at that point, you're up by multiple scores, right? You're up by multiple scores. You can sit a little bit more comfortably, and your defense has been playing lights out. So that's another part of it too. Your defense has been playing lights out. Your defense has been doing exactly what this defense needs to do. And I think because of that, I think because your defense has been playing as good as they've been playing, I think you got to lean into that a little bit too. And don't be afraid. Like, this don't have to be, and this is not a shot at anybody. This is more so a shot at coaching, right? This ain't got to be let Lamar Jackson bail you out of every situation. Make this easy. The hard part about it is it's going to be, the Zay Flowers, absence. Zay Flowers' absence is going to be tough for the Ravens today, but I think they can overcome it. But I think it all starts with playing a clean game. It all starts with not turning the ball over. Do not make it easy for the Pittsburgh Steelers to lean into what they want to do, right? Do not make it easy, right? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Do not make it easy for them to do it. Number two, I would say lean on Derrick Henry, right? It's funny, man. I got one of my colleagues I work with, he is a big Titans fan. So he's, obviously rooting for Derrick Henry still and upset that Derrick Henry is not still in, a Titans uniform. And, he's felt the same way. And it's funny because even he sees that a lot of the Ravens' issues in the playoffs have not necessarily been Lamar Jackson led, right? They've been more so John Harbaugh led, Greg Roman led. Even you can say Todd Monken last year led when you go to the AFC Championship game and not running the football, not sticking to what you do. I haven't made this video yet, but I probably still will. But it's like this offense has unstoppable potential. Unstoppable potential. Because Derrick Henry is hard to stop. Lamar Jackson, we know is hard to stop. And once these receivers get going, they're hard to stop. You got probably a future Hall of Fame tight end in Mark Andrews. He's the best tight end to suit up a Ravens uniform, and the Ravens have had some impressive tight ends. So because of that, I think, Derrick Henry is a cog in that wheel, and an important one, but he's a cog in that wheel that makes this team go. I will be interested to see, because I think Justice Hill will be back for this game, but I'll be interested to see how Keaton Mitchell is used as just like a change of pace, even to Justice Hill, right? Because if you put Keaton Mitchell on the field, that's another layer, especially since you're going to probably have to be a little creative when it comes to not having Zay on the field. So I think first things first, lean into Derrick Henry and make your offense easier. Derrick Henry is one of the greatest running backs of all time. Make your offense easier. Play action passes, I wouldn't say have Derrick Henry throw the ball, but if it's there, right? If it's there and it's easy for you, then do it. But like lean on Derrick Henry, lean on what Derrick Henry can do, lean on what Derrick Henry has done time and time again throughout his career. And I think if you lean on Derrick Henry, I think kind of similarly to the Ravens in the past when they've lost certain games, if you lean on what you are, you lean on what got you to the dance, you're not losing. The Ravens have been borderline unstoppable for 7 straight years. It's just they put themselves in situations and they can't overcome negativity sometimes. And I think you gotta lean on Derrick Henry to just make it easier for yourself. You can wash your hands of it and be done with it if you lean on Derrick Henry. Number 3, utilize Todd Monken's philosophy. This goes back into Zay Flowers and his injury. Utilize Todd Monken's philosophy. Now, this might not actually be Todd Monken's philosophy, okay? This is just my personal philosophy when I watch Todd Monken, I watch the film, I watch the games, and I see, what Todd Monken does and what Todd Monken is good at. Todd Monken's philosophy, in my opinion, is I'm going to utilize everybody, right? Meaning, I am going to go with a hot hand, but I know Isaiah Likely is a dog. I know Mark Andrews is a dog. I know Tylan Wallace can make some plays for me. I know Justice Hill can make some plays for me. I know that Keaton Mitchell is one of the fastest men on the field, torn ACL or not. And because of that, you got to use Todd Monken's philosophy, right? I think, honestly, unless it's administrative and you got to stick your nose in it and something just don't make sense if you're John Harbaugh, let the masters do what the masters do, right? When I say that, I mean, let Todd Monken run his offense. But if Todd Monken does get cute, let's have a conversation with Todd Monken mid-game, mid-stretch, mid-play. Say, hey, wait a minute now, right? But first things first, let Todd Monken do what Todd Monken does. Todd Monken is going to lean on his guys. And, there's been some times, especially early in Todd Monken's career, or at least previously in Todd Monken's career, where he didn't have as many stars as I think you could arguably say the Ravens have on this offense. And because of that, he knows how to use anybody. He knows how to, it's one of those situations where it's like, yes, Zay was your 1,000-yard Pro Bowl receiver, but Bateman made some plays. Tez Walker came in and made that big touchdown catch when you needed it, right? Like Tylan Wallace, I mean, he came in a couple plays and honestly saved the entire game for the Ravens. So because of that, because Tylan Wallace is going to be used a little bit more, we're going to see a little bit more Nelson Agholor. Like, don't get flustered, and that's another point too, and that's my first point of the negative side, right? Of the two things that the Ravens can't, they got to avoid. Don't get flustered, right? A lot of times when teams come in and punch the Ravens in the mouth, the Ravens look shell-shocked. The Ravens look like they don't know what's going on. They don't know what happened. This is not how we planned it. This was not how I wanted this to go. And I think, honestly, the Ravens have to this honestly does go back to John Harbaugh. You have to have control of your team today. You have to have control of your team today. Today, next week, the week after, and the week after, and if that's as far as you go, you have to have control of your team, right? You gotta be in the room saying, hey, we ain't out yet. If something does happen, the hope is you don't have any room to be flustered. That's my hope, right? You don't have any room to be flustered, but we'll see, right? We'll see how it goes. And I think like that's the biggest thing. Like the hope is that there is no room to be flustered. You ain't got to worry about being flustered because why would you? So I think that's another part of it too, right? I think that's another part of it too, is like, don't get flustered, right? Don't get flustered. And the last one, number 2 on the avoid side for the Ravens to get a win against the Steelers is, simply put, don't let Brandon Stephens get picked on, right? Send help to his side, right? Like, mix it up a little bit. Don't put him in bad situations either, right? Because we know George Pickens is probably gonna get his, right? But Brandon Stephens is a mainstay in this defense, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but do not let Brandon Stephens get picked on. If Brandon Stephens is getting picked on, I don't care if you got to move Marlowe around. All Pro Marlowe is All Pro Marlowe for a reason. If you got to move him around, I don't care, right? That doesn't matter, right? Do not let Brandon Stephens get picked on, because that's been the whole entire year. And when people have made plays against this Ravens defense, a lot of times 21 running behind the play. All right. So I think this is going to be I think, honestly, to wrap up the preview, I think that the Ravens win big today. I really do. I think the Ravens win big. I think we're going to look back and it's going to be very similar 34-17, something like that. I think it's going to be a multi-score win. I think they're going to make a statement today. And I think, it's honestly probably going to be a little shocking. It's not a lot of times. It's not a lot of times where the Ravens just come out and beat the Steelers. But I would not be surprised if it happened again today and they go ahead and bounce them on back home. That's just what I think. That's just what I think. But let me know below what you think in terms of the Ravens Steelers wild card game. What happens, right? What is going to happen today, right? What's going to happen with the Ravens and the Steelers? Who's winning, right? Who's winning? Who's losing? Do the Ravens have enough, right? Do the Ravens have enough to get the job done? I gotta know. Let me know down below as you're hitting that subscribe button, and let's jump into the next part of the show. Look. The Pro Bowl team, the All-Pro team, it has been announced. Okay. And there was a couple of snubs. Let me just read off. Let me just read off I don't know if I have a list of just the Ravens players, but let's read off the snubs from the Pro Bowl. So let me just go down the list and I'm gonna go down the list and then y'all can just see what I'm talking about. So when you think about it, right, the Ravens and the Lions are leading in Pro Bowls this year. I think the Ravens have 9, the Lions have 7, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be an indication of some things too. So the Ravens have 9, the Lions have 7, and it's looking good, right? It's looking pretty good. But let's talk a little bit about the AFC, and of course you see 2 of the potential. Because I'm gonna go off the Ravens website here. Potential snubs for the Ravens when it came to the Pro Bowl. All right, specifically the Pro Bowl, because it's very, very interesting, right? So of course you got Lamar Jackson at quarterback. You have Derrick Henry at running back for the Ravens. Patrick Ricard at fullback for the Ravens. You got Tyler Linderbaum, the backup, which I'm a little surprised by that, to be honest. No Mark Andrews, but Travis Kelce instead. Very, very interesting. Roquan Smith for the Ravens in the middle linebacker position. No defensive ends. Metabike is number 3 for the Baltimore Ravens when it comes to interior linemen. Of course, All Pro Marlowe, Pro Bowl Marlowe is there, listed there. And of course, Kyle Hamilton. No Justin Tucker, not really a surprise there. No Jordan Stout, not really a surprise there. Let's see. Okay, that's all NFC. I was trying to see if they had like a, sometimes they have like an honorable mention. They had the whole list right here. I didn't went through. Anyway, sometimes they have like an honorable mention type thing where they're like, not necessarily honorable mentions, but like, kind of they was on the fringe of making it type situation. But it's very interesting because you can see here the Ravens. We're talking about potential snubs. First things first, Kyle Van Noy, Nick Bonito of the Broncos, TJ Watt of the Steelers, and Khalil Mack of the Chargers made it. Interestingly enough, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little surprised. I'm a little surprised that Kyle Van Noy didn't make it, because I think honestly, I mean, I don't know the stats off the top of my head. I think Van Noy is the leading. He's a sack leader for the Ravens. I know that, but I don't know exactly what he's got. 11.5, I think it says right here. Yeah, he's got 11.5, which is tied for 4th most sacks in the league. But it's very interesting because it says he's tied with TJ Watt. He was tied, I think, for votes with TJ Watt and Nick Bonito, who both ended up getting the nod, which is interesting because I feel like with TJ, I don't feel like TJ Watt's had a great season, really. I mean, and maybe some of it's been injuries. Like I think some of it's been injuries, to be honest. But I mean, injuries, matter in that regard. So very, 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 very interesting. Shout out to Ravens Talk with Yolanda. Shout out to Yolanda B. Yeah, we got to get this win tonight. Okay, look, we got to. We got. It's got to happen. Okay, it's got to happen. But y'all watching the replay, it's got to happen. Okay, I agree. I mean, I think it's got to be big too. It's got to be a big win. It's got to be. It's got to be. I need multiple scores. I know. I don't care. I don't care about the win, like in terms of what the score is at the end of the day. But I would love to see. You just love to see it. The big win. But another one that was a snub that was listed was, of course, I'm gonna come back to him. Ronnie Stanley was the other one. Was number 2, was the second snub for the Ravens. So you got Laremy Tunsil, Deion Dawkins, and Rashawn Slater. And I think a lot of that's coming off of Ronnie Stanley having a kind of a bounce back year this year, and kind of being one of the more consistent parts of this offensive line that I think gets a little more credit than people want to say, right? So I mean, I'm not mad at Ronnie Stanley. I can understand. I can kind of understand where they're coming from, right? Like I understand where they're coming from, and not putting Ronnie Stanley up here because I think the other 3 guys had good seasons, but I don't know. I mean, in pass protection, he's only allowed 2 sacks. I mean, like I said, I think for the fact that Ronnie Stanley hasn't had the greatest last couple of years, and he's kind of made that comeback this year. I think that's big. I would have liked to see Ronnie get Pro Bowl honors, and then the other one. So of course the Ravens had y'all can see it on the screen if you're watching, but if you're not, I'm gonna get some suspense going. Of course the Ravens had their first drafted Pro Bowl wide receiver in Zay Flowers, which is nice. Of course, they routed him for that Steelers matchup. But a guy who didn't make it, interestingly enough, now only 2 guys make it for tight ends, is Mark Andrews. And interestingly enough, Brock Bowers and Travis Kelce made it. Now, Brock Bowers, let's just be honest. Brock Bowers was probably the top tight end in the league this year, right? So we can be realistic about that one. Did they put Travis Kelce on here for name value or something? Like, because I don't even feel like Travis. Like, I know Andrews had a slow start to the season, but Travis Kelce has had multiple games where he's done literally nothing. At least Mark Andrews coming out here catching touchdowns, okay? He may not have the yards he usually has, but when you got a Pro Bowl wide receiver, sometimes you don't get those yards, okay? Sometimes it's spread out. We spreading the wealth over here. So very interesting, though, that Travis Kelce made it. I mean, I just feel like there was other good options. Like, I just don't see I don't understand Travis Kelce making it, right? I feel like we said, it was just name value more than anything. Like, I feel like it was name value more than anything. I mean, George Kittle is the leading. I mean, he missed some games this year, and he's the leading receiver, the leading tight end. At least they say in fantasy. Let's adjust that a little bit. So, I mean, even Trey McBride, I feel like Trey McBride had a good year. And I'm not saying he won't have a good year next year, but it's like Travis Kelce, we talking about 1,000-yard guys. Like, I'm not saying that Mark Andrews should have definitely necessarily made it, but I mean, we talking about 11 touchdowns for a guy who only had 673 yards. I mean, that's Mark Andrews at least. In terms of versus Travis Kelce, yes, he had more yards, but not nearly as many touchdowns, so not nearly as impactful. At least on the scoreboard, we want to say. He might have had some impactful first downs here and there. But I mean, even still, like, even if we take Mark Andrews out of it and, we say he's not even necessarily a snub per se, George Kittle don't make it. Trey McBride don't make it. Even Jonnu Smith had a good year. He don't make it. I just think it's very, very interesting. Okay. I really do. I really do. I'm honestly a little surprised. I'm a little surprised. And there was one, I know for a fact there was one all pro surprise that I'm trying to think of. And let me try to remember too, because Josh Allen did make the Pro Bowl, right? Am I tripping? I'm almost certain. Josh Allen did make the Pro Bowl. So the quarterbacks, which I think makes sense. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Which I think is fine. I mean, you probably could say some other guys in terms of I just don't think Josh Allen had as impressive of a season as everybody claims that he has. This man been trying to take Lamar Jackson's MVP for a minute, like even last year. So, but when it comes to the All Pro, look that up real quick. I feel like there was a pretty obvious snub for the Ravens on this one. So I know Bills fans were a little upset that Josh Allen didn't make first team, which once again, like we said before, y'all let me know below. What is Josh Allen like? Like I get he took a worse team than he did last year to the 2 seed in a horrible division, but what has Josh Allen done? Like what has he done this year? And I know and we about to get in that conversation too, but I don't understand. Let me look real quick. Let me make sure because I know people were upset about that. They were like, oh, Lamar takes the All Pro first team from Josh Allen, and it's like, are you surprised? Like, am I supposed to be upset that Saquon Barkley took the All Pro first team from Derrick Henry? Am I supposed to be mad about that? But anywho, so Justin Jefferson. Let's see. So I know Meta BK didn't make the defensive side. I feel like that was the only one I was kind of surprised about. Wait a minute. You telling me Kyle Hamilton didn't make first team? I didn't even realize that. I think that's a snub. Kyle Hamilton didn't make first team? What? Okay. I mean, I know he made second team, but it's irrelevant. But I just find it interesting. I just find it interesting. I think the other thing that surprised me though was that Josh Allen made second team anyway. Like for all the hate I've given Joe Burrow all season, Joe Burrow Joe Burrow's number one. Joe Burrow's gonna be the passing leader this year, right? Like because he's got the most touchdowns. So why would he make second team? I know his team didn't make the playoffs, and I know they started slow, but for him to still have the season he had, and I mean they were right there. They just started slow. I just think I don't know because I feel like sometimes like second team goes to whose team ended up being the best as opposed to or being close to the best as opposed to who didn't. But anyway, let's jump into the last part of the show. All right, look, I just that right there just was a little bit. It's just interesting to me. All right, y'all. Look to my Bills fans. Go ahead and click off. All right, y'all go ahead and click off because y'all ain't want to have this conversation. But to everybody else, y'all can stick around because we gotta have a quick little conversation. Okay, we got to. We gotta have a quick little conversation. Okay, first thing first, the MVP conversation is over. Okay, the MVP conversation is done. Is over. Right now, I understand that a lot of people want to say Saquon Barkley, and I'm cool with that. Okay, honestly, I'd be cool with that over Josh Allen. I would be fine with that over Josh Allen. Dang, I thought Derrick Henry had 2,000 yards this season. Shoot, I thought he had 2,000 yards this season. He didn't. Dang, I thought he did. Anyway, honestly, I thought Derrick Henry was going to pass Saquon, and it was just going to be one of those things. But he ended up not. He ended up at 1921 with Saquon being at 2005, which was a little less than Jamal Lewis. So shout out to our Raven right there. I think often forgotten about running back in terms of running back spaces when we talk about running backs and great running backs all the time. But so I get it. People want Saquon Barkley to win the award because they feel like he's had the best season. And I know a lot of people have said, well, if Saquon Barkley was not on the Eagles, they wouldn't be as good of a team as they was. And I do get that. But I just don't agree. I don't agree. Like, I'm not saying that the MVP should be a quarterback award by no means. I felt like Derrick Henry back when I think Aaron Rodgers won MVP. I felt like Derrick Henry should have won MVP because we talk about something that rarely happens, which is a 2,000-yard season. But that was also a year where I felt like no quarterbacks truly played well either, right? Like there was no quarterbacks that were like setting the world on fire, nothing like that. So it wasn't as if that was going to matter, right? But when it comes down to the Saquon Barkley conversation, right? You can have the same, everybody wants to discredit Lamar because they're like, you got a Hall of Fame running back and you got one of the top tight ends in the league and you got a Pro Bowl wide receiver now, right? And I can understand your debate, your conversation, your discussion about said things. But we all know, we've seen it time and time again. Do we really think that if you take Saquon Barkley off the Eagles, they're not at least a playoff contender? Like, I'm not saying you can just plug and play with a guy of that caliber, right? But now I will say, I feel like he's had a legendary season. I think 2,000-yard seasons for running backs are, number one, like unheard of. Number two, I feel like 2,000-yard seasons for running backs are historical because they just don't happen. So that's why I feel like if anybody was to get it, I mean, I don't even want to make this debate about Saquon Barkley versus Lamar Jackson. I think it's more so I feel like honestly, it's more so there's no way you're gonna sit here and tell me Josh Allen is a better MVP candidate than Saquon Barkley is, right? Like, if you're gonna give it to a quarterback, don't give it to Josh Allen. That's what I feel like. Shout out to King Morgan hanging out with us. Yeah. Look, we all pumped. Appreciate you for coming by. We all pumped for this one. I mean, especially y'all know how it is, man. Ravens Steelers is just it's one of those times where you like there's some games throughout the year, no matter what the team is, no matter how good they are, where you're just like, hey, we ready for this one. And this, I agree with you. I'm ready. I'm ready, my nerd. So I'm excited, man. It's the playoffs too. Okay, I mean, ain't nothing better. But I want to make this a conversation about the Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen thing real quick, and then I'll talk about Josh Allen, Lamar real quick, and I'm getting up out of here. Okay, I've been here for too long. We've been hanging out for too. No, I'm kidding, but look, let's talk about this. So Saquon Barkley, I think, would be deserving of the MVP because of that historical 2,000-yard season. I just do. I think I agree with y'all. Like when people mention Saquon Barkley, he should be the MVP. And if we don't want it to be a quarterback award, but I think we so quick to forget the last time somebody rushed for 2,000 yards, he didn't win MVP, and he should have won the MVP. Now, if Barkley would have broken that record, I think we had a different conversation. And if also, I think the other part is if Lamar didn't have a historical season, Lamar had a historical season, completely historical. Like, I think, I know sometimes they just like cherry pick numbers and like they create stats out of nothing, but this is a real legit stat, right? Like, I think this is a real legit stat that actually makes sense. The first player to ever have 4,000 yards passing, 40 touchdowns passing, right? And over 800 rushing yards. That means he accounted for 4,800 yards. 4,800. Over 40 TDs. If I'm thinking right, probably close to 45. It might be 43-ish, but like probably close to 45. And they want all 1 yard QB never mind. Look, y'all. I think this discussion is more. I think we got to quit having the discussion about Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, and let's at least have the discussion about. I mean, let's just be honest, right? Let's take Lamar out of it. Let's be completely objective here, because of course I'm gonna pick Lamar every time. Let's be completely objective here. Saquon Barkley, historical 2,000-yard seasons. Historical 2,000-yard season, 13 touchdowns, only 2 fumbles. So that's 2 turnovers to his name, right? He had 125 yards per game, averaging 5.8 yards a carry. I don't know what the highest averages, of all time are, but it's got to be up there. I mean, technically Derrick Henry averaged more, but we're not talking about Derrick. We're not talking about Derrick. I know, I get it. We're not talking about Derrick. But I do want to say 2,000-yard season for Saquon Barkley. But when you go back and you look at, if I can find where I put it, you look at Josh Allen's stats, right, for this season alone. Right? You look at Josh Allen's stats for this season alone. So you got 63% completion percentage, 3,731 yards, 28 TDs, and 6 picks, which I think under normal circumstances is probably fine. But there's zero historical about that season. Zero. Like, I don't even know. I mean, Baker has a better chance at winning MVP than he does. I definitely think Joe Burrow should have a better chance at winning MVP than Josh Allen does. I just do, right? And I mean, a lot of people call me a Josh Allen hater, and but I mean, when similarly to Matt Ryan, right? Y'all remember? I'm sure y'all remember. We all Ravens fans here. We just hanging out at this point. Y'all remember when Joe Flacco came out in 2008 and was the Ravens quarterback, starting QB, and it was all these comparisons to Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan was putting up the numbers and he was the Pro Bowler, and he was everything, right? And I don't know about y'all, but I'm a big Joe Flacco guy. I just am. Y'all know this. I'm a big Joe Flacco guy, okay? And you aren't gonna sit here and tell me that Joe Flacco was worse than Matt Ryan. You weren't going to tell me this, right? Number one, I understood the offense that Matt Ryan was running versus the offense that Joe Flacco was running. I understood it. So you weren't going to tell me that. But even still, like, these are like borderline. Maybe the interceptions are a little bit lower, and maybe we should be proud of Josh Allen for not turning the ball over more than he throws touchdowns. But like, even still, we'll be talking about 45. I think he's got 8 rushing TDs, right? Even still, that's 36 total TDs. If my math is right, if I'm thinking right, if I'm being legit, right? To 6 picks. This is the same guy that stole a vote for Lamar Jackson last year for throwing 29 touchdowns and 18 picks, right? Because he had a good team, or like, because his team's record-wise was, but like, y'all remember Lamar Jackson was supposed to be a 2-time unanimous MVP, and Josh Allen somehow stole a vote from him. And you can say he had, even if you compare the seasons, because a lot of people want to say, and I'm gonna bring y'all in real quick so y'all can see the numbers too, because I don't want y'all just being bored looking at me. But a lot of people would say, and don't get lost in all this craziness right here. But get out of here, Rob Gronkowski. A lot of people would say they look back at last year's season, and this has been the talk, right? Well, Lamar Jackson had practically the same numbers as Josh Allen. I don't know why this thing jumping up and down like that, but practically had the same numbers as Josh Allen, and that's why he deserves it, right? I think even Hendo said it. It's like a get right type type MVP for Josh Allen. So you're gonna take away, Lamar Jackson got 2 MVPs. This is by far, and everybody knows it, his best season. in the NFL. I don't know if it's his best completion percentage off the top of my head. Let's show right here real quick. Rob Gronkowski back up here again. I'm trying to remember. It's not his. Oh, this is Josh Allen. I'm tripping. Like, I don't get it. So we looking at 37-31 for 28 touchdowns, 6 picks. Right? We just looking numerical. I'm not even, I'm not talking about what passes the eye test and all this. We just looking numerical. Right? They want to compare that season. Let's go back to Lamar Jackson. They want to compare that season to Lamar Jackson's 36-78. Probably we probably talking about 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, I said, I'm thinking, Josh Allen is not 1,000-yard rusher, but we probably talking about 1,000 yards rushing, 24 TDs, 7 picks. Right now, you got to also remember Josh Allen didn't have a historical season last year either, so Josh Allen didn't have a historical season this year, right? So, like I said, the discussion is between Saquon and Lamar. That's simply put. The discussion is between Saquon and Lamar. And if you want to give it to Saquon, because like we said before, historical for him, I think that's cool. But we talking about a guy who passed Michael Vick for the most rushing yards by a QB. We talking about a guy who for the first time in his NFL career didn't have to lead his team in rushing. And we saw what he could do passing the football. His MVP season, he got 1,000 more passing yards than he had that year. He's got, what is that? 5 more passing touchdowns than he had that year. He probably he got less picks than he had that year. He probably sat more. Don't forget, and I think we forget too, he has a top 5 passer rating of all time. Of all time. Right? Like, this is a historical season for Lamar Jackson. Historical. I think he's the MVP. I want to check one more thing and I'm getting out of here. I promise y'all. Y'all hitting that subscribe button down there already? I know y'all are. We've been hanging out for a long time today. Longer than I wanted to, but that's okay. Look, so career rushing leaders. I would love to see. I want to see the averages. Let me see real quick. NFL. Let's look it up real quick. NFL rushing yards. Oh, can't type. Rushing yards per game. Let's talk. See, this thing don't even want to work no more. This thing said you've been on here too long. NFL rushing yards per game. Right? Yeah. Per game leaders all time. I'm just curious. Like, I'm just hanging out with y'all. We having a good time. All right. So yards per game. Let's see. Oh, this is not per season though. Rushing yards per game in a single season. Here we go. Shout out to Pro Football Reference, man. They be keeping me right. All right. So even still, for as many, I would love they got yards per rush because I think that's what I was looking at. Because Saquon is not on this list, right? Saquon. Oh, this is rushing yards per game for a single season. Oh, I think they just showing the years for it. It's not showing me the exact year. So for a single season, he's 20th. And I don't know if his stats have been entered into this database yet for this year. But let's see. Can I do yards per rush? Can we do that for a single season? Let's just out of curiosity. This might not work because I feel like they're going to have some people on here that don't even make no darn sense. Most of these people are quarterbacks, which I guess makes sense because they don't rush as much. So, I mean, Lamar Jackson's on this list twice, but I'm not seeing where Saquon would be I don't think that's fair. Honestly, I don't think that's fair. Let's wrap this up. I don't think that's fair. All right. I don't think that's fair. Okay, I would be nice. I don't think that's fair because the quarterbacks are gonna lead the way in that because they don't rush as much as running backs, and they don't have a purely running back metric for that. But even still, I just think when you put Lamar Jackson's historical season versus another historical season of Saquon Barkley, I think that's more of a conversation than Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson just because they're in the same draft class and we want to have that conversation. That's just me. But anyway, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me. If you lasted the whole time, let me know. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited for this game today. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun, y'all. It's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm expecting big things from the Ravens today against the Steelers. I know Yolanda B was earlier, as she said. I know King Morgan. Look, I didn't even get to bring his comment up, but I know King Morgan, 200 yards, 3 TDs for Lamar MVP. I think so. Look, I think so. And I think I would love to see those type of games from Lamar in the playoffs. I want this to be career defining for him. I agree with y'all. Shout out to 86 Girls once again. Look, we gotta spit the facts. All right, you don't get the facts everywhere. Okay, you don't get the facts everywhere, but especially in these Raven spaces, with these Raven content creators, you gonna get some facts. Okay, you gonna get some facts. All right. So shout out to y'all, man. Y'all been hanging out, and I appreciate y'all. Y'all get ready for the game. I know, and ready for the 4:31 too. So definitely gonna be a lot of fun today. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Remember that which podcast is this? The Be More Show is on all major podcasting platforms. So be sure I'm gonna pull this up for y'all so y'all know where y'all can find the Be More Show. The Be More Show is on all major podcasting platforms. I don't want that one. The Be More Show is on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all your favorites. All right, so be sure to check the show out. Take the show with you if you're on the road. All right, if you're on the road or something, you going to work or something. I hope y'all don't got to work tonight. But anyway, definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Be More Show. Let's get out of here.